All right, so we're going to get into Bitcoin on the outlook for the weekend, but we'll also take a look at, general markets. But more importantly, what I want to take a look at today is maybe the potential of where Lightning and Stacks are essentially getting ready to go in a pretty much a grudge match, I think. We'll dive into all of that because I think this is going to be a good one for understanding how Bitcoin evolves. It's going to be interesting. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into Tech Path. Let's jump into it today, and we'll start with a couple of news points out there in terms of just general macro data that we've talked about a lot here on the channel. We have a lot of analysts come through. By the way, I'd love to get you guys' feedback on who you think our top macro guys are. Who are the people that you like to listen to? I mean, we've got, let's see here. We got Darius Dale over at Macro 42. He comes on. We've got Macro Alf coming in occasionally. We've got the guys, we call them the duo of doom. And then who else we have? We got some others. We've got Mark Yusko comes in kind of on that. But I'd love to get your feedback on you. You guys follow the channel enough to know who are the top macros. But when you look at a couple of things, January PCE inflation, this is the Fed's preferred inflation gauge, hits 5.4. This is above the expectations of 5, so that's a problem. Core PCE is now 4.7. Also, that expectation was 4.3. And then we have higher expected TPI, PPI jobs, and PCE data. I love all these acronyms. The point is, in a very simple term, is a lot of the data that we expected to be lower is higher. The macro still continues to pressure. Now, does that mean that we'll start to continue to see more market pressures? Obviously, we saw the S&P take a dump. Back term there, but we also saw the Dixie go over 105 as well. So there's variances here that are starting to showcase that maybe we are in for a little bit of a downside. Question is, how does that play out? A couple other tweets here I want to get to. Let's jump over here to this one right here. This was Carol Roth talking about this. Again, same scenario. Cost of goods, those services jumped 0.6 in January. So this is the biggest increase since last summer. Which I've also talked about is that price increase, because remember, price stability is like the core thing that Powell gets into on these FOMC meetings. And it's all about price stability, because price stability essentially equates to lower inflation. Lower inflation gets to the Fed's mission of 2%. All of that plays into what we're dealing with right now. Here's coming a little bit more on the 50 basis points might be on the table for the next Fed meeting. We've talked and we've hinted around this over the last week, is that there is a possibility we could see a 50. What would that look like? I'd love to get you guys' feedback if you think that would be a big hit to the overall markets in general, or do you feel like this is still structured into a Fed pivot coming toward mid to third quarter this year? Love to get your feedback on that. Another tweet coming in. This was from Wall Street Silver. Fed's economists think we are entering a recession. How long until the Fed gets into Fed policy to change direction? And this goes back into the discussion that we had and have had since the last FOMC meeting, and have seen Bitcoin breach 25K 3 times. And a lot of that, I think, is still because of what we saw in that Powell remarks center, which was really the most dovish we had seen around Powell. And then all of these macro data points start flowing in, and things are not slowing down. So this is the concern that the market, of course, is looking into. Will Bitcoin bulls retain the advantage? What to expect from Bitcoin this week? There's a few things in this that I thought were okay. The sideways action, I think a lot of people kind of expected a little bit of that. I don't know that everybody was still pushing for a 27 or a 28K Bitcoin. I think a lot of people were looking at that 25 being such a resistance level. The question was, where did it retrace to? Data now revealed that the disinflation trend of the past few months has reversed. This was the thing that I even put a tweet out about this about a month ago, is that I was worried that we could see a double dip, meaning where we start to see a dip on CPI, general inflation, and jobs possibly, which never did, and then see another bump. And that's essentially what we could be brewing into over the next few months. This will be a very interesting spring, because the data is still indicating that these particular trend lines are still up, including jobs, which I think is the one that really kind of hurt the most. But if you look at Jeff Ross, this is our other macro. I'll call him a macro analyst. He's a fund manager for Vailshire Capital. He's on our show quite a bit. And this was a tweet he had over here on the 23rd. And from his perspective, market participants are almost done worrying once again about sticky high inflation as they've been throughout the month of February. Once the narrative shifts again, the Fed pause, rally will recommence and intermediate that period of time. Just a guess, not obviously advice. So his theory is that we could see a little bit of a pullback, but again, you kind of look at. I always love his icons in his bio: fire, bull, just a clock, and then his blue check mark. So interesting how he talks like that. But anyway, point being is that we could see a little bit of a slowdown here. His thinking, though, is still very bullish on where this is going in the midterm of price action. Coinbase CEO on current narrative on crypto. We're in one of those despair phases right now. Pretty straightforward. I think it's just a little bit, discussed about. We've seen it already with that tip of really 3 times in a row at 25. We also saw some very high points in terms of overall sentiment. On Bitcoin, actually, it had reported the highest since back in the bull run. So a lot of those kind of things have come in, and maybe this is the current local top that we're going to be dealing with. One other thing he talks about here, secondly, he says explaining that increased regulatory scrutiny is ultimately good for crypto, since legitimate companies like Coinbase, which prioritize trust and compliance, will be beneficiaries. Now, I agree with this. I think there are a lot of projects out there and companies that will benefit from regulatory environments. But I also think that in general, whether it's the NFT market or what we see happening in Bitcoin right now with Ordinals, a lot of this is going to start to play into a much broader narrative on a global aspect around accepting what's happening in blockchain. I think that's another big thing that he's kind of alluding to. I want to jump over to an old story. And this one was, I think this was back in December, yeah. This was MicroStrategy offering Bitcoin Lightning solutions in 2023. This was the new strategy for Michael Saylor. And, pretty straightforward. He's doing something, and of course, could potentially use Lightning Network to incentivize customers. The company also wants to make it possible for enterprise to spin up Lightning infrastructure very quickly. And if he is pushing, and he is, Lightning to this level, is there an opportunity for Lightning to maybe see some other utility aspects other than what we've seen so far, pretty much with just Strike? And I would look at, and I'll show you some stuff here in a second, that kind of validates that. It's not that it's a bad thing. We've had Lightning on the show before. But Saylor believes it's only a matter of time before someone creates the Lightning version of a Netscape browser, which could happen, which he believes will involve something like a Lightning wallet, holds dollars. And again, this gets back into the payment transaction side, as opposed to what we are seeing happen with Bitcoin and stacks, of course, with the ordinals. Just to give you an example of what Lightning has been up to, you can kind of see Strike launches the mobile payments app. This is hard to see. Let me kind of zoom up a little bit there. All right, this was like in January 20. Strike. You've got a lot of happening here with El Salvador. Then you had ZBD enabling Lightning Network payments. Then you had a lot of the international, this being Africa, Philippines, etc., all happening, as you can see, all the way into January 23. But again, this has really just been around payments. And outside of Cash App, the only other real company that has been integrating this at scale has been Strike. That's Jack Mallers' team. And good for them. I'm a big fan of what Strike is doing in the essence of payment. But is there a bigger opportunity, a bigger appetite for what the potential could be to really kind of go globally? I was also looking at Bitcoin ATM installations. Now, why I look at this is because some of this data starts to showcase the demand scenario. And this can be the appetite for demand versus what we see out there on sentiment data, which sometimes is a little bit skewed because of Bitcoin having so much. You have to kind of glean out the bots, then glean out the super bulls, and then also the super bears to get really a good quality data set to analyze. But Bitcoin ATM starting to dip a little bit here, as you can see. Let me zoom up on that for you guys so you can kind of see how this goes. These are the full counting right there. Boom, boom. And this is Bitcoin. Let me go into what it looks like on the crypto ATM number. That is definitely not a good situation. And then if you look further into their chart, I've got Bitcoin ticked off right here. I mean, really, US is kind of the big zone of where ATMs are potentially going. And then if you look at others, we'll just click off on Ethereum here and let that paint out. There's Ethereum also. So there is a lot of activity. I just don't think this has been enough to really create these big waves of potential. Now, when you look at global scenarios like this, obviously the recent moves of China and possibly legalizing Bitcoin once again and structuring new infrastructure deals within Hong Kong, remember, a China province, the scenario could play out that the East maybe has been doing a little bit of rope-a-dope on how and what to look at for the future of not only Bitcoin, but other digital assets and blockchain. So this will be interesting if China and Asia continue to press in this direction, because if they do, they may have a front-run position over the United States, and that's the bigger concern. However, I do think that is a benefit to Bitcoin and other digital assets, NFTs, gaming, etc. All will live possibly in the East. You've heard me talk about this quite a bit. Is that really the next run most likely will be driven out of the East? And when I say next run, being bull run. Further into what do we have here? Oh, this was the ZBD thing. And this is the scenario that there are other aspects being built on Bitcoin. At least there's some movement here. Obviously with stacks, this has started to open up an entirely new theory of what can be done in the Bitcoin blockchain and get into this. And I'm going to show you a clip of Michael Saylor. We actually interviewed him, and I'm not sure, but I think we might be the only show that got Michael Saylor to address NFTs. And I'll show you the clip here in a minute. I want to jump over to a couple other areas. Here's Bitcoin pay to play. This is earning in Super Mario. So again, this goes back into, this is where, powered by ZBD, some of the things that they are doing. And this is done through like a little QR code. But we're going to see more of this. I think more integrations with the ability to earn Bitcoin, but more integrations into how games and other things might play into this. Obviously, we've already seen the explosion of Ordinals with stacks behind that, and I think that's going to be pretty interesting. Now, if you look at social, which is really the one area that I feel like should be the biggest growth, this is a little bit actually disheartening. And let me get what I'm pointing at here. There's 625,000 Nostra profiles today. I have a Nostra profile, and let me tell you guys, I've been in there many times. Outside of the Bitcoiners, there is no conversation going on, and it's a very limited thing, and it's very difficult to really kind of create. The user experience is not there yet. Now, I'm sure it can be. The point being is even though that looks like a lot of growth, this has started to plateau right here at 600,000. Now, it's sure over the last 2 weeks, but if you look at this just immediate spike, sure, it could be going up. But if you compare this to things like XCAT or other platforms that we're seeing these kind of growth numbers, it dwarfs in comparison. So I don't know if Nostra is going to be a zone. It could go the way of Twitter Spaces. I don't know. We'll see. But again, this is all up to Elon, because I think Elon's integration into Twitter for whether it's going to be blockchain or Bitcoin is still going to be the key scenario. Let me play a clip to you. Just so you're clear, this is Stacks on their own channel. So they're doing a little shilling here. I just want to make sure everybody understands that. But let me play this from their CEO.
Bitcoin builders culture between 2013 when I started to 2016. And since 2017, there has been this strange period where all new innovations are kind of like pushed away and other chains are doing it. And Bitcoin is sort of like sitting on the sidelines. We are obviously trying to change that. And Ordinals like came out of nowhere, and I think they came out at the right time and with the right sort of like a fun little thing angle that is just igniting interest in the Bitcoin builders culture again. And I do think they're very interesting. I do.
All right. So what he's getting at, and this is Munib, the CEO, founder of Stacks, is that and this is something. There's been a period of time where we've seen kind of a repression, or I want to word it the right way. The point is there's certain voices in the Bitcoin community. We talked about this with the Layer 2 Labs guy the other day. Watch that video. It's a very interesting conversation. He's an OG. He's been around the space for a long time. He understands it probably as good as any tech guy I've talked to. But the point being is that there's been a little bit of suppression in Bitcoin advancement in terms of things like what Stacks did or what has happened with Ordinals via Stacks. That is and may be changing. And that's going to be the question mark here, because if it does change for the good, we could see a whole new, if you think of Stacks kind of like the Polygon of Bitcoin, that could be the kind of scenario we're playing into. Question will be does the narrative change? Because that's the bigger scenario that we're faced with right now. He goes on in this tweet. This was another clip from that same interview, but let me play this one real quick.
Very healthy thing for Bitcoin. So many people who sort of like forgot about Bitcoin because they wanted to play with NFTs and other types of experimental things. They're now booting up Bitcoin nodes. They're trying to kind of like come in and almost like reconnect with Bitcoin. And a lot of developers, like the infrastructure and dev tooling around Bitcoin.
So I don't know some of this could be conjecture. We haven't seen enough of that yet. There are a handful of projects that are starting to roll out and do some interesting things already. We've seen wallets for Ordinals. We've seen some move, and I anticipate that there will be some pretty quick development architectures being built, new dApps, new all sorts of tool sets coming into the marketplace. If this comes to be a real scenario, then we could deal with something that is very unique for Bitcoin, and that is a whole new evolution of innovation. If that happens, and we continue to see this Ordinals component really climb, I think there might be some interesting things in the future here for sure. This was the interview we did back over a year ago, and it was on our channel. And let me kind of just play this clip of Michael Saylor addressing NFTs and now how he might think about this around Ordinals. Is this for real or is it a fad? What are your thoughts on NFTs?
Well, it's certainly driving a lot of excitement and awareness of the industry, and I think the thinking goes that if I want to capture provenance and license or authenticity, then that should be on a crypto network so that it's immutable. Right. And I think that the extent that it educates the world and it's bringing welcome attention to the world, I think it's still early days, and it kind of falls in the category of venture capital investments. Right. Right. So NFTs are another venture investment in the crypto world. And if you're sophisticated, you'll probably figure it out. Bitcoin is a treasury reserve asset. It's a different idea.
Yeah. All right. So the point is that he wasn't completely negative toward NFTs. And I think that is something in terms of staying open as a Bitcoiner is a very key element right now. We're at a very critical time because remember, Stacks was kind of a no-name project. Its claim to fame was really Miami Coin. It was the City Coin concepts, and then obviously we saw we'll call it the exploit of Taproot, which essentially utilized Stacks to develop Ordinals. That really was what kind of opened up the eyes. Sometimes I always wonder, technology sometimes is right in front of you and you don't even realize what can be done. And of course, that's that concept that is, of course, happened here. And I'll get into another clip further in as well. But here's Michael Saylor. He talks about this. This is exactly what I'm pointing at. Let's zoom up on that for you. So Bitcoin ensures digital scarcity, holding assets, supply, etc. Bandwidth constant over time, thereby creating upward pressure on Bitcoin price, healthy for a free market. Necessary but will full blocks destroy Bitcoin? And he was a proponent of full blocks are a good thing. So I think the key here will be, and I'm not putting words, and we'd love to get Michael Saylor back on. Maybe he'd love to come on and talk about Ordinals and maybe the future of where maybe there's some opportunity here. I do know, his viewpoint on Lightning is very strong. So Stacks, I feel like, might be more of an an opposite side of where Lightning is going in terms of development architecture. So a lot of that happening out there for sure. All right, so with NFTs still blowing, and we're seeing a lot of growth, and the market is continuing. Ordinals has now brought it back to reality of the sense of where people are looking at the future of how these things might happen. You've got Paris or NFT Paris happening right now. And let me play you this. This is a video of the line to get into NFT Paris. Let me just mute that, but just you can kind of see. I'll blow that up for you. This is the line to get into NFT Paris. It's like a mile long. So, I mean, this is crazy. It's cold outside, and we've got this kind of activity happening in Europe right now. To me, this only puts one thing in motion, and that is that NFTs are here to stay. Blockchain evolution and innovation is coming much faster, I think, than a lot of people give it credit for. And if you look at Ordinals, we'll go back over here to Ordinals, look at their data. This is from Dune Analytics. This was the big, jump up. Whether or not Stacks can maintain this, much like what Polygon has done for Ethereum in terms of business development, doing the right kind of deals, getting the right kind of dApps developed, those kind of things. But if you look at right here, let me zoom in on this right here, guys, where we can kind of see. You'll notice here that we're seeing another movement up in Ordinals. And this is right here on top of an additional growth period. So you see this section right here of growth in Ordinals, and then this explosion, retracing, and then more access to the use case of Ordinals. So this, of course, is the Taproot utilization, which is essentially how Ordinals are created. So all of this points, I think, good for Bitcoin or bad for Bitcoin. That's the question. I think that this actually is a good thing for Bitcoin. Any kind of innovation that we see in the marketplace that starts to explore, even if it doesn't work, the idea is, because I always say this when you talk to Silicon Valley, when I invest in small companies, is fail fast and fail forward. The reason is you learn from those failures, you get a chance to understand what didn't work, what did work, and then build upon it and end up with something that's even more dynamic. And I think that's what we are in right now in terms of the stage of where Bitcoin could be. All right, so let's take a quick look over here at data. We'll take a look at Bitcoin right now. This is again, all right, so dipping slightly right now. This is currently updated CPI data. Bitcoin again slightly down, but it's been trending down really right here. We saw kind of a double dip day of no movement and then a little bit of movement down. And the other thing too that we've done here, Ethereum also did the big one and did a huge correction here from a 67 to a 64. Let me zoom in on that one. And then down to a 63. So again, flattening a little bit, but still Ethereum trading, I think, around 16 now. So we saw that one coming overall. One thing we have done also, guys, is we have now on the dashboard, we've added another tool in here, which is an index tool. Let me go down to all the charts, scan down here. Oh yeah, here it is. So this is one we're working on right now. This is the exchange data that's looking at exchange ratings based on website and app visits. So you can see the January Binance still leading out. There's December data, November data. What's interesting to me is Coinbase's growth right here. And again, Coinbase seems to be, if you look at their overall performance right here, I mean, these guys are starting to edge back up. This is their average sentiment score. And then you look at someone like OKX, which has been driving very strongly, and then Binance, which has been declining on sentiment score. So it's an interesting one. Also, ratings coming in based on social engagement. You can see the ratings there. Coinbase number 1, OKX right there at number 2. Remember, this is global, so you've got KuCoin, Gemini, Phoenix, Binance, US, MEXC, Kraken, etc. coming in there. So we're kind of watching a little bit more of these data and exchange, data sets from exchanges to understand when you're ready to make a trade, where is the place to do it. Just remember, self-custody is the only way. Use one of your ledgers, one of your Trezors, whatever you have out there. Hopefully we're going to get a chance to see the new ledger coming in. Let's take a look at the poll real quick. All right, so what do we have? What is doing a better job at scaling Bitcoin, Lightning or Stacks? Wow, 59% on Lightning, all because of payment and the development. Back to that chart we showed earlier, when you think about that, all of those things have been coming based on pretty much Jack Mallers. Okay, so outside of that, I'll go back to that chart just to show you guys, just so you know, that's Strike, 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 Thunder, which is Strike, Cash App, Strike, ZBD, Strike, and Strike. So all on payments, yes, but is that really the scaling? And Ordinals pops out, we see one, and then all of a sudden we see wallet usage. Now the question is that a tool set? Is it a value? That's going to be the question mark I think that we'll have to answer in the next few months. Let's get into a few questions. Bitcoin Maxi, don't like another token as a solution. I don't know if it's a solution. Again, Jen comes in. I wasn't aggressive enough buying last bottom. Maybe we get a second chance. That's very possible because I mean we had the 16 or the 15.8, 15.5 bottom in there, so we may get a shot at that again. We'll see. As Litecoin have any potential? Litecoin is another one that has been looked at as a potential, but it just gets overshadowed so much. That's the problem with it. Because really, at the end of the day, when you think about technology in general, it does boil down to how good is the PR team, what kind of innovations, what updates have they done, all those kind of things do matter. Ooh, all right, can we talk about Caspa as a solution to scaling Bitcoin? We did the interview with Layer 2 Labs, which is basically a sidechain solution that they're trying to get into the Bitcoin community. And he's a real, I mean, this he understands what's going on, and he's been around long enough to understand the real functionality of it. So there's some interesting aspects. Could be the case. Paul, are you shorting Meta and Tesla? Meta, I have been in and out of on just because I kind of swing trade with Meta. Tesla, I sold my entire position quite a while ago. There's reasons for that. I probably should do an entire show on my Tesla experience. I've owned many of these cars. There are many things I have to say about it, both good and bad. But overall, it's not a company that I invest in right now because there's a lot of volatility, not only from a stock position, but I think just from their PR issues that we're dealing with electrification of vehicles. Brendan, fads don't have exponential growth over decades. That is true. Jay, yeah, a lot of great assets to load up, and no matter what the climate is, for sure, I would agree. And then thoughts on Bitcoin halving cycle. The question is whether or not you believe in the cycles or not. Mine is I'm kind of in between. I believe that there are scenarios timing-wise that play out into this that really are more about macro and economic conditions, more so because of the amount of people that would be involved in investing in something like Bitcoin by 2024 and 2025. All of that, I think, is a different angle than what we dealt with in 2021 and even 2017. It's a different game out there for sure. All right, guys, make sure and join into the Diamonds. Oh, we got one more poll. Okay, let's see that one. Do you use Lightning Network? Okay, of course. This is the crypto pit manipulating the audience, guys. Don't fall for those things. So anyway, the point is that just to your point is that if you haven't had a chance to use Lightning, but you look at Lightning being the only solution. You get the point. I think everybody understands that. If you're not in the Diamond Circle, that's how you get the real solution. Get into the Diamond Circle. We're dropping all kinds of cool stuff over there. We got a podcast in there that's only available in the Substack, which is on where the Diamond Circle lives. It's also where we drop a lot of CPI stuff as well, so you guys get that. And if you want to jump into our mastermind group, get direct access to our team and myself, jump into that as well. You can click the links down below. If you want to catch me out there on Twitter, I'll be surfing there this weekend, hanging out, looking for some crazy person, most likely on Twitter. You can catch me out there at Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.